fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Thursday, the 11th of December 2024. The past, present and the future. Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga share the same stage addressing foreign policy concerns and geopolitical challenges. Financial resilience. President Dissanayake calls for enhanced measures to ensure stability and efficiency in the country's financial sector. Assures full government support to stabilize the country's finances. The clash of utilities. CEB bogged down with dues worth 333 billion rupees, reveals officials. Further points to outstanding dues as the reason to not drop tariffs. CPC officials meanwhile deny the need of competitors in the fuel market. The helping hand. A sum of 11 billion rupees to be credited to Aswasama beneficiaries on the 13th of December, reveals the Welfare Benefits Board.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama, Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwasi Dinu Sensodyne, then Langamati Pharmacy in Labagata Hacker.
Kanta Parisang karagathot? Api Parisang.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasafe, Vesat Mattu Gatharat Disney.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now in your top story this evening, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya claims that Sri Lanka's security and legal powers are likely to be challenged moving forward as geopolitical tensions are rising globally. Speaking at an event in Colombo yesterday, she further mentions that Sri Lanka's foreign relations are significantly influenced by the nation's efforts to recover from the economic crisis. Meanwhile, former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga claims that citizens of Sri Lanka have voted for a radical change in the country's political system through the struggle in 2022 and the two most recent elections. A convocation ceremony of the Bandaranaike Centre for International Studies was held yesterday at the Bandaranaike International Convention Centre in Colombo under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, former President and Chairperson of the BCIS, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, and head of the Maldives policy think tank, Eva Abdullah.
There is one issue that exacerbates all the other issues and all the other challenges for our countries, and that is we are poor, and we're becoming poorer and poorer. As our governments are forced to take one loan after another, to pay one creditor after another, our people and our governments and our countries are becoming poorer and poorer. As we do this, all of us in the debtor nations, we know we need ways that are centered around individual lives. As we do this, Maldives and Sri Lanka, good governance is key. Without good governance, however much money is pumped into our countries, whether by the IMF or bilateral, however much money is pumped into our countries, without good governance, it is nothing.
Our people have spoken loud and strongly. First, publicly through the Aragalaya, and now through two successive elections. They have clearly stated that they want a massive change, a radical change, turning upside down the systems of government we have had in this country for several decades, completely changing the type of leaders, their ethics, their knowledge, their education. But I would hasten to add that only education is also not enough to govern a country. We need goodwill, we need absolute honesty and experienced people to plan and implement government policies.
Many of you also belong to the 38% of Sri Lanka's citizens who I would call the younger generation or the youth. You have had a tough time. I understand the frustration you may feel with the political system and a culture that have hindered meaningful participation. You may have felt that your educational and economic opportunities were limited and that you were not able to live unpressured as equal members of society with dignity and respect. The Aragalia called for a system change. Many of you might have been part of it. And here's your chance to contribute to achieving that change by putting your learning to good use as proactive citizens. Our main national interest in this point in time is to stabilize our economy and work towards economic recovery. As a part of Asia, where geopolitical tensions are rising among international and regional powers, our security and regional stability are likely to be challenged. Right now, Sri Lanka's foreign relations are influenced significantly by our attempts to recover from the economic and debt crisis. But we have important diplomatic recognition earned through some wise and correct actions of the past. We have been standing on the right side of history, promoting peace, sovereignty of nations on various international issues. We have never supported any international war, and we have a good name among many nations for our principled positions. Some of these positions we damaged in our recent past, but I think earlier on we were able to establish a good name for ourselves simply because of the principled positions we took on many contentious issues.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Aspirations Education, a pioneer in overseas education. Meet our experts at top destinations worldwide. Your trusted and caring partner in overseas education.
Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath had a cordial meeting with Ambassador Tim Enderlin, Assistant Secretary and Head of Peace and Human Rights Division of the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs during his most recent visit to Sri Lanka. The discussion centered on promoting national unity and reconciliation in the country. The Foreign Minister reiterated the government's commitment to building one national identity for all Sri Lankans and requested Swiss support for strengthening initiatives such as dialogue and capacity building for attaining sustainable peace and inclusive development. The Swiss side affirmed its continuous support to further strengthen the relations in key areas of mutual interest.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
Diabetol, සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Prime Group, ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන land leasing, ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසිගින්නක් නැහැ.
කිසිගින්නක් නැහැ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
This season, get up to 25% discount on Arpico Foam and Spring mattresses. Available at Arpico Supercenters.
Meanwhile, Dutch ambassador to Sri Lanka, Bonnie Horbach, expects the Sri Lankan Parliament to implement better policies promoting equality moving forward. Speaking on our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuatta, Ambassador Horbach highlighted that Sri Lanka continues to face a high rate of domestic violence cases and that public spaces need to become safer for women. The ambassador also acknowledged Sri Lanka's significant achievements, including increased female representation in parliament, and expressed hope for future policies that continue to advance rights.
16 days of activism, Orange the World, the global campaign to end violence against women, and you're championing it here in Sri Lanka.
I'm a female myself, so it affects me and it's affected me and my career over my entire life. And what I think is important is that we sometimes forget that 50% of the population is female. If we lose out of the capacity and intelligence and the productivity of those females, we lose out as a country, but also as the world. So that's why I'm passionate about making sure that we focus these 16 days on how we can eliminate violence against women and girls, because they are faced with this violence more frequently than men are in our societies. And I think all fathers and all mothers want the best for their girls and their boys. And sometimes we forget that females and girls are faced with other challenges than boys are.
Do you think females and girls here in Sri Lanka face more challenges than in your country?
It's hard to say. I think worldwide 1 out of 3 females face violence in their lifetime. That's a staggering amount of females that have to deal with these issues. It's not only in Asia or in Africa or in other parts of the world, it's also in the Netherlands and in Europe. So we should not close our eyes for the challenges that women face in the Netherlands as well. But I think, especially if we look at Sri Lanka, domestic violence is still an issue that a lot of women have to deal with during their lifetimes. And maybe we could learn from each other and help each other to keep our women and girls safe, because I also think that females have a lot to offer a country. With regards to Sri Lanka, we've seen that a lot of women and girls faced difficult times during the pandemic, but also in the aftermath of the economic and financial crisis. We should not close our eyes for those difficulties and make sure that they are safe in their workspaces, in their homes, and in the streets. For my daughter here in Sri Lanka, she loves it, but she also sometimes complains that if she is in Golf Phase 1 or in any other shopping center, that there's lots of catcalling going on. I also heard from women that I speak to that use the public transportation that it's not always safe. And those are areas that we should all stand around our women and our girls to make sure that they have the same safety in public spaces as our men do. Because if you're not safe, how can you then achieve the best of yourself? We have, as an embassy, have also tried to support these initiatives of creating more awareness and capacity amongst local female politicians, allowing them to be in this space, also lifting them up, trying to discuss with them what they want to achieve, and seeing how we can, as an embassy, with our programs, with local NGOs, help them to build the capacity to play a role not only in local government but also in provincial and in national government. We've seen considerable progress during the last elections. I believe you went from 11 females to almost 22 women in parliament. That is a considerable progress, and hopefully we can continue that progress, because the more variety we have in decision making, the better decision making will be, because women take something else to the table than men do. It's not bad or better or worse. It's about looking at a different way at the same policies and ensuring that everybody will benefit from the policy that are being made in Parliament.
Now, President Anura Dissanayake has directed the Minister of Finance to implement measures to enhance the efficiency and resilience of Sri Lanka's financial system. Speaking at a discussion with the officials of the Ministry of Finance, the President assured government support to stabilize the country's finances. During the meeting, the head of state also emphasized the importance of creating an effective mechanism to streamline banking and financial operations, ensuring efficiency and accessibility. The President's office stated that the meeting also focused on the central bank's commitment to studying and closely analyzing developments in the economy and the financial system as a whole, and focus on implementing new policies to ensure financial stability and enhance the resilience of the financial system. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Customs announced today that the private sector has imported 1,900 metric tons of rice from India since the 10th of December. The government recently granted permission to private importers to import rice to address the rice shortage in the country. Accordingly, the first batch of rice imported from India by private importers arrived in the country yesterday, while 75,000 kilograms of the imported batch of rice have already been released from the customs. The Essential Food Importers Association spokesperson Nihal Seneviratne stated that the samba and white rice stocks that were released from the customs have already been issued to the market today. He further stated that during discussions held yesterday between his association and Trade Minister Wasantha Samarasinghe, it was informed that if the customs duty imposed on imported rice were reduced by 15 rupees, the rice could be sold at the imposed maximum price. However, the minister refused to reduce the duty or increase the price of rice. A consignment of 55,000 tons of muriate of potash fertilizer coming as a grant under the World Food Programme was received by Sri Lanka today. Accordingly, 50% of the consignment will be provided to farmers who have already started paddy cultivation, while the remainder will go to coconut cultivation. It has been decided to provide the remaining amount of fertilizer for coconut cultivation.
The consignment of 55,000 metric tons of muriate of potash fertilizer was received by the several ministers led by Agriculture Minister K.D. Lanka and the Russian Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Levan Jagarian, today. Addition has been made to provide 30,000 metric tons from the consignment free of charge to farmers who have already started paddy cultivation based on the priority list prepared by the Department of Agrarian Development. It has also been decided to provide the remaining amount of fertilizer for coconut cultivation.
We were waiting for these fertilizers for 2.5 years. Unfortunately, it was blocked in Latvia, one of the European Union countries, because of the illegal sanctions against the Russian Federation. Finally, we, together with the help of our friends, managed to settle down this problem, and finally the fertilizers have reached Colombo. That's why I would like to express my gratitude to all our friends and partners, including the United Nations Resident Coordinator, Mr. Marc-André Franch, and Mr. Siddiqui, to you personally.
අවශ්‍ය පෝරවලට මේ වෙනකොට සහනාධාරය දීලා තියෙනවා ඊට අමතර එකක් බවට මේක පත් වෙනකොට ඔවුන්ට ලබා දෙන සහනාධාර මුදලේ යම් ඉතුරුවකොත් ගොවි ජනතාවට සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
Now, the Director General of the Power Sector Reform Secretariat, Pubudu Niroshan, stated that despite tariff revisions aimed at increasing income, the Ceylon Electricity Board still has outstanding payments totaling 333 billion rupees. He made this statement during a media briefing in Colombo today. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board mentioned that the government plans to restart the biogas plant project in Sri Lanka under the new administration and that it will take 3 years to implement the project.
To cover the cost of generation, transmission and distribution, the CEB takes loans or delay debt repayments. As a result of these actions, the CEB has already incurred overdue debt repayments amounting to 333 billion rupees. Due to past tariff revisions, the CEB currently has an additional income of 41 billion rupees. However, if the current tariff remains unchanged until next year, there will be an additional cost of 39 billion rupees for the CEB. The decision to continue with the current tariff revisions was made after carefully considering these factors.
විවිධ රජයන් උත්සාහ කළා ස්වභාවික වායුව මේ රටට ආනයනය කරන්න. ඒ ආනයනය කිරීමේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය නැවත ආරම්භ කිරීමටයි අදහස. ඒ ව්‍යාපෘතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න අවුරුදු 3ක් ගත වෙනවා. ටිකක් ඉතින් ඉවසීමෙන් ඉන්න වෙනවා. ස්වභාවික වායු පර්යන්තය ඉදි කරලා 28 මුල් භාගයේ වෙද්දී ස්වභාවික වායුව මේ බලාගාරවලට යොදලා විදුලිය නිෂ්පාදනය සඳහා ඉන්ධනවලට යන වියදම අඩු කර ගැනීමේ ප්‍රයත්නය ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
මේ මාස 3ේදී We cannot address all the issues in the next 3 months. Until we build power plants to generate low-cost power, it will not be sustainable to reduce the tariff. There is a rumor circulating that there will be a fuel shortage because we returned an oil shipment that arrived in the country. In fact, a ship belonging to the United Petroleum Corporation arrived in the country on December 2nd, while the fuel was sent back without unloading. This will not have any impact on the country. The CPC has sufficient fuel stocks and we have already ordered the necessary consignments through April 2025. Therefore, there is no need to panic about a fuel shortage. The ministry is the authority of the CPC. According to our manifesto, we have proposed bringing it under the Public Utilities Commission. The legal reforms required for this are currently being carried out. These companies are coming to the country due to decisions made in the past. But we believe that there is no need for these companies to continue their operations here.
Now moving on to your political news. After days of deliberations and an intense competition within the alliance, the Samagya Jana Balawegaya forwarded the names of 4 of its members to the 4 remaining national list seats allotted to the same alliance. Accordingly, the list comprises Mano Ganesa, Nizam Kariappara, Sujiva Senasinghe and Muhammad Ismail Muthu Muhammad. Meanwhile, the General Secretary of the New Democratic Front, Shyamala Pereira, issued a letter addressed to the former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, stating that the majority of the parties to the MOU agreed to forward President's Counsel Faiza Mustafa to the Election Commission. At the 2024 general election, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya secured 5 nationalist seats in Parliament. General Secretary of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Ranjit Maddum Bandara, was appointed to one of the nationalist seats, while the other 4 seats remained vacant. While the top brass of the SJB continued to weigh its choices for the 4 remaining nationalist seats reserved for the alliance, the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, a member party of the SJB-led Samagi Jana Sandhanaya, filed a petition with the District Court of Colombo over the delay in appointing the nationalist MPs. Considering the petition, the Colombo District Court issued an injunction preventing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya from appointing its nationalist MPs sans the inclusion of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress's General Secretary Nizam Karyappar.
The understanding that we have with SJB will not be impaired by this situation. We are disappointed that we had to resort to measures such as this to reaffirm our right. We hope that the Samagi Jana Balawegaya will fulfill our expectation and grant us the appointment we deserve.
Moments after the injunction was ordered by the District Court of Colombo, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya announced its choices to fill the 4 vacant nationalist seats in Parliament. Accordingly, the 4 nationalist MPs representing the SJB-led alliance will be Mano Ganeshan of the Tamil Progressive Alliance, Nizam Karyappar of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Sujiva Senasinghe of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, and Muhammadu Ismail Muttu Muhammad of the All Ceylon Makkal Congress.
We did everything right at the right time. We acted according to the agreement that we signed with our allies. No, we had already taken the decision before they went to court. We released the letter.
Meanwhile, General Secretary of the New Democratic Front, Shyamala Pereira, has issued a letter to former President Ranil Wickremesinghe over the appointment of President's Counsel Faiza Mustafa to the party's last nationalist seat. Through the letter, Pereira alleges that she was coerced daily to submit one of the many names nominated to fill the party's last nationalist seat. The letter also reveals that the NDF's Politburo convened to discuss matters pertaining to its last nationalist seat, since the parties to the Memorandum of Understanding could not arrive at a collective agreement. Accordingly, the NDF's General Secretary asserts that a majority of the parties within the alliance approved the submission of President's Counsel Faiza Mustafa's name to the Election Commission in order to fill the NDF's remaining nationalist seat. The Supreme Court today declared unlawful the arrest and detention of the former governor of the Western Province, Asad Salih, back in 2021. The arrest and detention were carried out citing provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. The Supreme Court ruling follows a fundamental rights petition filed by the former governor of the Western Province alleging the infringement of his rights. Accordingly, through its determination, the Supreme Court ordered the respondents of the matter to pay 75,000 rupees as compensation to the plaintiff. The respondents, captioned as such, were former Public Security Minister Sarath Weerasekara, the then Director of the Criminal Investigation Department Nishanth De Soiza, and its Chief Inspector of Police Jayantha Payagala. Former Governor Asad Salih was arrested by the police over his remarks during a press briefing in 2021, which according to the police were allegedly deemed to incite strife among religious groups. Now, Sri Lanka's Welfare Benefits Board stated that they will credit money to Aswasima beneficiaries' bank accounts tomorrow. The board stated that a sum of 11,024,030,500 rupees will be credited to the beneficiary accounts on the 13th of December. Around 1.7 million beneficiary families are eligible for the welfare scheme. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka's central bank has issued a notice calling for banks and financial institutions to record the unique identification numbers before the deadline on the 31st of December. The notice stated that all individuals who have not yet obtained the required identification documents or completed registration with the registration body are advised to urgently obtain their identification documents or registration documents and provide their identification numbers to the applicable licensed banks and licensed finance companies before the deadline. The notice emphasized that failure to record the specific unique identification number or the use of alternative identification numbers may result in delays, inconvenience, or even inability to claim compensation under the Sri Lanka Deposit Insurance Scheme in the event of cancellation of a license issued to a licensed bank or a licensed finance company in which you have deposited your money. Now, the Colombo Stock Exchange reached a new milestone, surpassing the 14,000 mark during today's session. The benchmark all-share price index closed trading at 14,036, gaining 151 points. Majority of investor attention was focused on banking sector stocks, along with companies in the food, beverage and tobacco sector. Ceylon Beverage Holdings, HNB, Sampath, JKH and Commercial Bank emerged as the top contributors to the index. Amidst multiple off-board transactions and increased participation from retail investors, turnover stood at 7.4 billion rupees. This is an increase from 76.8% from the monthly average of 4.1 billion. The capital goods sector led the turnover with 24% contribution, followed by the banking and material sector, jointly contributing 35%. There was a net foreign inflow of 306.6 million rupees, signaling interest in internal investments. And now let's take a look at the rupee exchange rates for the day. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.